Hmm.
No shit. You know what I'm saying? So
But the elephant in the room is this whole situation of, oh, well, I do music full time. But it's like, but you do music full time and you don't monetize and you don't have a way to establish a budget because you don't have authority. So
right.
it's like, you got to figure this out. You got to make it work on one side, just like anybody with a business. You can't start a business without capital. So you need something to generate capital to launch your business, i.e., a traditional job, a previous career path. You look at people like Frank Ocean. Wasn't he supposed to be a doctor, if I understood the situation correctly, prior to launching his singing career,
I think I
if
heard
I'm not
something like that.
mistaken?
I think I heard
Listen,
I think I heard something like that. Yo, TJ, what's good, man? Um what's going on? Oh, we can go and introduce a podcast. So this is new. This is brand new. If you guys wondering what the hell is going on, since a lot of you guys that actually watch the podcast, listen to it, and have complimented on the podcast, man, I just figured why not to make content specifically for where most of our fan base is. So we're live streaming
mm-hmm.
on Facebook. So welcome to episode 36 of the Capitalism and Art podcast. I'm your man, co-host, music producer, and co-founder Hanz Nobe. Um, Here with my main man, project manager in A&R, Urban Wavz. We're over here to talk shit, make you guys upset, and hopefully, um, clear some, answer some questions for you guys, give you like the real information of people who actually have some practical knowledge and who actually go out here and do this stuff. Um, but yeah, man, just want to get into it again. What up, TJ? What's going on, everyone? If you're watching it now, or you watch on the replay, or you're gonna catch us on YouTube or wherever else, we
Mm-hmm.
definitely appreciate it. So, on today's episode, I kind of want to get into it. So, this is something that me and Waze have been talking about for like a while, right? And I've been thinking for a little while on how I was going to address this. Now, the reason why I've been thinking about that is because for the longest time, I had been working with artists with various budgets, right? And one of the things that come up is okay, so I have, let's say, $5,000 for my single, or 10,000 or 15. What do I do? And I want to give you guys some practical steps on what you can do and why you should have a budget so it makes sense. I think the issue is what a lot of artists is when I talk to them is that they don't understand why they need a budget. So it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like, you need a grocery budget because you need food to eat. You need a gas
Mm-hmm.
budget because you need funds for, to put gas in your car so you can get everywhere else. No one really dives into why you need a budget for music, for your music career. It's more of like, well, I could do it for free. And the thing is, when people say you can do it for free, my issue is the question I always ask is, um, what do you mean that you can do it for free, right? So our biggest thing this year, my biggest thing this year is I'm trying to find pain points and bottlenecks for artists so I can understand why there's this. All right, so let me break this down. So we've worked on various projects throughout the year, in the past 2 years, especially since we started Room 380. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that there's like this huge gap between the artists that get it and the artists that don't. It's not even like a little like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, just read this one book or one blog, or you know hire this person. It's like this huge gap, and I'm like, why is it that the artists that are more business driven get it and are succeeding, but the artists who just like, oh, I'm still, trying to learn how to play the guitar in Lydian or something like that. It's like this huge gap. It's just I don't know I don't know what content is. I don't know how to create it, and I'm just confused. Like, I don't get why that is. So I want to address one of the pain points in regards to that. So I was in a meeting with a whole bunch of music producers and A&R this past week, right? And one of basically it was like, if I'm to be honest, it's just a whole bunch of us venting. Like nothing really productive came out of it. I'm just keeping it a buck. But one of the biggest things that came up was like, yo, why is it that we keep running into artists who don't understand that they need the budget? So I want to explain exactly why. So I want to get into it. One of the biggest things is, in fact, let me go and share my screen. Let's see. Give me a second here. All right. So one of the biggest things that we come across um, is we're trying to answer the question of, hey, this is why you need to have a budget so you can cut through the noise. I'm gonna take this ground level. So if I Google how many songs are released on Spotify every day, we just use Spotify. I know everyone's not a big fan of Spotify lately because of the whole thing, but we'll get into that later. But here it says right here from hypebuy.com that 60,000 songs are uploaded to Spotify a day. He said last week I dove into 6,000 data point frequently cited. Let's see. I want to say that's about. It's going to be, if it's not 60,000, what's it going to say? 40,000.
Something like that. The crazy part about this, though, is somebody's going to come up with a question and be like, well, Hans, if 60,000 songs are released and I have a budget, how big does my budget have to be to cut through this quote unquote noise?
Okay. So that was okay. So we can start right there, right? So this guy's saying 40,000. I don't know who this person is, but just between 40,000 and 60,000 a day, right? Now, if you think about it, if everyone released a 20 song EP, let's say everyone out of your group of five released a 20 song EP, you guys just taking 100 songs out of that pie, right? But to answer Wade's question, well, how do I cut through the noise? It's you got to have a budget, but how big is your budget? That depends. So, one of the things that we come across is we'll start with the Harry Fox agency, right? So I want to break this down for you all. And Theo, please feel free to jump in because you've had a bit more experience with this. So the Harry Fox agency is an agency. It's based in New York. Basically, it's been like the go-to agency for artists to try to find and cut through the noise, right? So going here, no, that's not. I mean, that's for the agency. But going through here, what the agency does is they can find different ways to get you in front of a massive audience. They can come up with different strategies. They can come up with different ways to do that. Now, I don't think I'm going to find the budget without actually, let's see. Hey Fox, it costs around 125, 150 to affiliate, uploading album tracks, IRSC codes and so on and so forth, right? That whole conversation. But this is kind of just toss the mic over to you. Wavz, why is this a thing? Why do artists, in regards to your question, why do they need to look at hiring agencies to cut through the noise?
That's a great question. So you can look at it just like any other industry, sports, acting, etc. They hire professionals who know how to navigate systems. No different than when you hire a marketing agency to propagate your information to the world. This particular agency, a marketing agency, for example, is going to tell you what type of content is beneficial, but it all stems back to the first thing they're going to ask you and or tell you who your audience is. A, they'll tell you, or B, they'll ask you, do you know who your audience is? Because most people will say, oh.
No. Go ahead.
I was about to say, most people will say, well, how big of a budget do I need? And the question really comes down to, what is your audience type? How big is your audience? Because that's going to make a dictation of what you're actually going to spend. We need to know who you're targeting.
Right. So that kind of goes, I forgot what episode, but we kind of dove into that a little bit. So I want to dive into that. And we can do the whole episode on that. Right. And shout out to Alex Lenon. Congratulations. Alex Lenon was an artist and also podcaster I work with, actually producing music for his gaming podcast. Shout out to him. He just got an acting gig. So shout out to him for getting some IMDb credits, man. But I want to dive into that. So let me take it ground level and then I'll build it up. So what Wavz is talking about is whenever you are thinking about releasing music, you really have to think about who you're releasing music to. Right? So the reason why that's important is the biggest issue that we come across when working with artists is they say things like, hey, I want to make music for the world. And the thing is, that's not going to work. So let's say, for instance, so I was talking to a young lady, right, who was looking to possibly hire me to work on a record. I don't think it's going to work out per se. And it's nothing bad. Just like, I just don't think I'm a good fit. But one of the things she said was, hey, I want to release music for the world. Said, really? She was like, yeah. I said, okay, well, let's think about it. I said, you're a young lady, you're from Houston, Texas, and you make music about empowering women, making their own choices, not staying in bad relationships, and living a life on their own rules, right? She said, right. I said, okay,
Hmm.
cool. If I were to find a young lady from Mumbai who is all about arranged marriages and that she as a wife should be subservient to her husband, do you think she's going to rock with your music? And she was
Right.
like, probably not. It's like, exactly. So the whole
Hmm.
thing about making music for the world to listen to just doesn't work. I know we look at the exceptions like, Michael Jackson and so on and so forth. But even then, Mike at that time was very pro-black. A lot of people don't want to rock with him. If you look at someone like Beyonce, she's very pro-black, very women empowerment. If you're no offense, if you're a white gentleman, let's say from Mississippi, who is still going off the patriarchy mindset, you're probably not going to listen to Beyonce, right? So she's not making music for him.
But here's the difference, though, in that situation where people kind of get the situation misconstrued. They each have a target audience. It just so happens to be that the music they make, that, how do you say, funneled into the target audience, became the popular concept that a vast majority of people started to rock with, i.e., popular music. So it didn't work as you stated. They didn't go for the world, they went for a target demographic. They marketed, and then the world came to them circumstantially based on their music becoming popular. So people got to understand that brand mindset. It doesn't work the first way, but it can work the second way.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, in regards to that, it's just like it really comes down to if you had to pick one specific person who you're going to release music to, who is it? And if you can't answer that question, then I would say they don't release any music just yet. So in business, we call that an avatar, and what that means is who is your if you had to say describe them describe him or her from like top to bottom, who would it be? So for instance, let's say I'm an artist, I make pop music, but like I also make rap music as well. If I say like, well, my if I had to describe my avatar as a guy between 18 and 25 who would listen to Charlie Puth, but then turn around and like listen to like Griselda sometimes. He loves going to the mall on Saturdays. He probably spends somewhere between $200 and $500, every other week. He likes a vacation in like New Orleans. Like the more information you have on like your avatar or your target demographic, the easier these agencies can help you. Where people mess up is that they don't have one. And then, what would you say, Waves, if you don't have one and then you go into these agencies, is it more of like they help you develop one based on the information you gave right then and there? Or we'll possibly looking at somebody doing like real research and helping you find that target audience?
I mean, so just like any business, that honestly just depends on who you're dealing with and at what stage you're actually paying for. Because, for example, if you go to a marketing firm, they could have a package that basically says, hey, we're going to look at everything you've created to a circumstance and basically identify the data points to figure out who you say you're targeting and who's actually looking at your content and then build from there.
So in regards to data points, like what does that mean? Like
So,
if I'm brand new to this, like what is data? What is that?
sure. So, in the sense of saying data points, it's just another way of saying metadata or metadata for those who enunciate it in the second term. But when we look at it, we can say, okay, if you release videos on Instagram, when they're watching your videos, what time are they watching your videos? What day are they watching your videos? Who's watching your videos? Males versus females? What's the majority versus what's the minority? All of those things are considered data points because it gives bits of information that can lead you towards a direction of success. No different than saying this particular individual who listens to Charlie Puth on a Saturday morning, but by the time Saturday night roll around and they about to hit the hookah spot, they listening to Griselda. You know what I'm saying? Understanding those dynamic differences between that one person or multiple people allows you to target better. Now, there's no guarantee that everything's going to be 100% accurate because people are unique. You know what I'm saying? There are variable circumstances, but they're going
Okay.
to find as much as they can.
Okay. So I kind of good point, but I kind of want to bring it down just to make it like base level. So
Mm,
so what Waves is saying is when you hire the agency, they go very deep in regard to finding out who. your target audience, because the whole thing is retention, right? So like if it's 150,
Hmm.
120, they know that it's better. The more data that they have, meaning the more information you provide, the better experience that you'll have, right? It's just that simple. But
Exactly.
in regards to companies like this, what they're I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. What you're trading off is the more information you give them, the better experience you have, and what they're going to get in return is more data. Now we're not going to go into the whole information about, I mean, the whole conversation about how these labels are taking data from different artists and selling them to different agencies, but it's neither here nor there. But um, and that's a totally different conversation. But it's something you should definitely look into if you've been, thinking about releasing music, or you've been releasing music for like 6, 7 years or whatever. You're just like, okay, something's not working. Hire an agency. I cannot stress that enough. Find help. There is if you've been doing it for 6, 7 years and you are still not where you want to be, wherever that is, whether you sign with a major or you're on a world tour, find out why. And it's more, oh, that's another thing I want to touch base on. Okay.
Mhm.
So this be a new segment. So hold on, let me check in with the chat. Tapping in with y'all. Okay, okay, while working the track. That's what's up, Alex. Send it to me. Let me check it out. But this is something else I want to touch base on in regards to this conversation I was talking about. So I remember way back in the day when I had hair, I was at the barbershop, and why are you laughing? I had hair one time. I even had dreads, but I was in a
Oh man.
barbershop, and I think this was in Austin. I think I was with Agent O, and I was in Austin, and there was another artist in there. I didn't say anything about me being an artist, right? Because I didn't feel like saying anything. But the guy knew the barber, and he was real close with him. I think it was his nephew or something. But anyway, um, the artist was like, yeah, man, I'm trying to drop 5 mixtapes this year and this that, and the third. I'm trying to get him my Lil Wayne, da 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 da. And I remember hearing the barber say like, yo, man, you're on your way, man. Just keep working. Just keep doing it. Just keep working. I just remember just thinking to myself, what does that mean? So
Hmm.
I want to get into this whole thing, this whole mindset of I'm tired of people telling artists to just keep working instead of giving them actionable steps on what's going to help. If you have released, if you're a rap artist and you're on your third album, or are you a single songwriter and you're on your fifth album, and you have not seen a tremendous jump in your social media numbers, in your sales, and just your brand, something is wrong. Let me be the first to say that. I want content out there to say like, if you are an album number 3 or 5 or 6 and you have not seen a tremendous jump in your social media numbers or merchandise sales or whatever else, or your branding, something is off. It may not necessarily be you per se, but something, yeah, good. Something is off.
I'll say, even with that barbershop example, there's one distinct issue as to why they couldn't give him credible information. And it
Oh yeah,
happens
for
every
sure.
time. The fact that he's an artist dealing with someone who is an entrepreneur, back in that time, most, or even now, like even nowadays, most artists do not perceive themselves on the traditional entrepreneurial path. So with that mindset, most people around them who are entrepreneurs, who hire business coaches, who go to school, whatever the path is to obtain your own business, don't perceive them in the same capacity, because we are conditioned to perceive them as entertainers. So if you look at it versus sports, you go to sport, you do sports, a professional sport, you have a defined path that gets you to a professional league.
But even
You know what I'm saying?
even to that point, not to cut you off, but even to that point, yes, I agree with you 100%. But what I was you're going the right direction, but it's sort of like pinpoint exactly like where we're going is
Hmm.
there's so in one of the business coachings that I under right now is the biggest way to grow your business, or grow anything, whether it's in the gym or whatever it's, you got to find your pain point. You got to find your bottleneck. The reason why I say if you're on album number 3, 4, or 5 and you still haven't seen a tremendous growth, is something is wrong. Because let's just think about it, right? If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, what is that called? Insanity, according,
Crazy.
right? Crazy, right? So telling an artist to keep going, how do you know they're going in the right direction? So many artists get caught up in this whole thing of just trying to release music and that's it, or just trying to post a whole bunch of content. Is that and that's it? My whole thing is like, where are we going? Kind of like what we said about the social media calendar. It's like if you look at your content calendar, right? Which I forgot what episode it is. I'll put it. We had a free thing. We can download a content calendar. I think maybe I may have forgotten. But anyway, um, like you can look at your content calendar and go, oh, no wonder nobody's really watching my stuff. I'm not really posting anything, right? It's the same thing with your music. That's why I always ask, like, who are you marketing to? So, which kind of leads me to another point. I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of on fire. Episode 36 is fire. Let me check the chat real quick. I'm kind of killing it. Like I'm just like looping in like conversations like crazy. So what I mean by that is, let me say here. One of the things you need to do, one of the things artists should do, or one of the things let me put this on me. One of the things that I did as an artist that helped me get over humps was that I had no problem taking what I had to people who have been doing it longer and say, hey, this is what I've been doing. Tell me what's wrong. And I remember Felita Hicks was the one that told me like, oh, I can tell you why you're not selling more CDs. I said, why? She said, you never been on tour. I said, what do you mean I need to sign with a major label? She says, no, you don't. I was like, what do you mean? She said, there's a website called sonicbids.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can sign on sonicbids.com and they will find, I mean, there's different websites. Theo keeps promoting one, even though we haven't gotten a check. But there's, you can actually go, let me pull it up. So bands in town, right? Ways to find out that you're getting checks from them, Spotify, and Music Business World. I'm gonna cut you out. But
nah, one day.
One day. But there's a website dedicated to helping you as an indie artist find shows. And if you do it well in advance, you can put together your own tour, and then you go to canva.com and create your own flyer. Like there's different ways to do it. But I remember her telling me that, and I was like, oh, that's the next thing. So even though there were artists who were more talented than me, the reason why I was bringing them bigger income than them was because I had no problem taking myself and say, here, tell me what I'm doing wrong because I'm not where I want to be. So for artists, that's one of the things. That's something we can help with as well. Is like find out where your bottleneck is. Think about it. There's a reason why you're not where you want to be. It isn't because you're not talented. We know that. There's plenty of artists out there that we know that are not talented, that are making scunyon money. We can kill that right now. It has nothing to do with talent. So let's go and kill that. We know it has nothing to do with your location because last I checked, there's a guy. Goodness gracious, what is this guy's name? There's an artist. He's in Wisconsin, who is killing it in the indie market. Is it Token Hip Hop? I can't remember. I forgot where he's from. It's not Token Hip Hop. It's another artist.
I hope that's not.
What?
Wow, that's a hell of a name.
Oh yeah. So there's artists out there who are from territories that are obscure who are killing it. So we know it's not location, right? And we know it's not the type of music. We have seen too many examples to know that you can get to where you want to be without any of that. So before I go into this next thing, I don't know. Am I wait? Am I wrong in that? Like, am I wrong in saying that?
No, I mean, you're definitely correct. The only difference between what you were doing back then with Fleeta Hicks and what's happening right now with those obscure area artists is the fact that one, they understand their data. You know what I'm saying? Thus, they understand their audience. They know who to target and how to target. That's like when you go, as I tell artists all the time, I said, if you don't know what to do, start watching these YouTube channels of people who aren't necessarily artists in the sense of music. They have other crafts and watch the things that they do that make them successful. How many times they plug the word subscribe, how many times they subtly plug my website to buy merch, etc., etc., etc. You know what I'm saying? They consistently, transitionally remind you, but it's in the content, it's embedded in the behavior. Right. And that's what we have to remind ourselves of.
Right. And
it's like listening to records on radio.
No, 100%. It's you just got to find out where that bottleneck is. kind of leads me to my other point. I'm doing fantastic. Matter of fact, I'm get myself a drink of water. I'm doing great right now. Like for
Hey,
our
listen,
first, for
go ahead and
first,
hit that pat on the back real quick,
you
man.
know what I'm saying? For the first live stream on Facebook, I'm kind of killing it right now. I'm just saying. I'm not stuttering and missing words and stuff. So let me ask you a question.
Mm.
Who has a chance to be more successful? The artist with 6 years of experience, who's been, doing good in regards to promoting themselves and building a fan base,
Mm.
or the artist who comes out the gate with a $35,000 budget, but doesn't know anything?
And
Who?
you're saying,
Yeah.
okay, who's going to be
Who?
more successful?
Who's going to be more successful out the gate?
Are are we talking about in terms of exposure or in terms of actual sales?
We say actual sales.
So to be perfectly honest, I'm going to say the person who would be more successful is the person who actually knows their audience, because the person coming in with a budget, if they don't know their audience, they're about to throw paint at the wall because they're about to spend money to find their audience, basically spending at least 5 to 10 trying to target and retarget, trying to find that product market fit. Now, if they know exactly who they need to be targeting and they understand what those ads are going to do and what those people are interested in, then yeah, the person with the budget's definitely going to soar higher because they know exactly what they need to do with that money. But that's the difference, knowing what to do versus someone who already has an audience and you just coming in with the money. If you got the money, you need to go find somebody.
Okay. Okay. So here is where I'm at with it. For the sake of conversation, I'm going to disagree. The reason why I'm going to disagree is because if you're an artist and you have a $35,000 budget, I didn't say the artist was dumb. I just said that the person has $35,000 that they could spend, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if that artist, let's say, has a network, let's say he has someone who, you know, kind of knows something and can point them in the right direction. Let's say someone says, "Oh, check out Harry Fox Agency," and they walk into Harry Fox Agency with
Right.
$35,000. I'd say that the person with a $35,000 budget puts themselves in a much better position than the
Mm-hmm.
guy or gal or people that have been promoted for 6, 7 years. The reason why
Right.
is they now have access to way more resources and do a lot less work.
Right.
Let me tell you why I
But
have
you're
this on
not
this.
disagreeing with me. You're technically agreeing with me because I just said
I thought you
as
said the
long as
person with
that
six.
person with
No, he does. No, no, no.
no,
The person with the $35,000 has no
if they
experience.
know someone, right? But it's like I said, as
Oh,
long as
okay.
they go find someone, they'll be in good shape. But they gotta go find that person because
Okay,
they don't know
gotcha.
how to spend that money.
Okay, that's fine. So, okay. So the reason why I'd say that is because we were presented with the opportunity to work with a TikTok star um, with a very robust budget. Um, that it was one of the situations this wasn't going to work out, but that person didn't know anybody, but they had a much larger budget, and so I saw this person because I followed her. Saw this person throw money at the wall and
Uh-huh.
still find success. And she, the single is doing pretty damn good. And so even now, I don't. She says she had a manager. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't know, but it looked like for a while I was like, this person doesn't really know what they're doing. But because they were able to get way more exposure at a much faster rate and much more massive rate, they were able to leverage that because she knows how to leverage her social media. She just doesn't know much about the business, right? So
Right.
that's why I said I'm willing to disagree. I think that's why you see so many influencers now get into the game because even though they may not know how to work Pro Tools, they may have never been in a music studio, But what they do know is if I have this budget, I can get from A to Z very quickly. That's it. Let me look at the comments, man. What we doing? What we doing? What we doing? All right, so what's up? CJ, appreciate the love, Angela. Yeah, that's all I got. I didn't really have I didn't really have much to talk about. Theo, let you got something, man.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, just even lining into that situation with the budget. I mean, anybody can find success if you have enough money and you just start throwing it at places. That's not the issue. I mean, the real conversation of success realistically comes down to where do you find yourself? Where do you want to be? Where do you, I guess you could say, what do you define yourself as a brand regarding being an artist? Do you want to be the Chris Brown, Beyonce, Jay-Z, or do you want to be the Ryan Leslie, so to speak? You know what I'm saying? You have to kind of determine what that avenue is going to be, because even in the instance of saying you have money, you having money versus someone who has a fan base who we don't know if they do have a defined budget or not, we can only assume out the gate, because they know who to target, that over the, I guess you could say, point of longevity, they're going to be more successful. That 35,000 is going to run out eventually. You know what I'm saying? If you don't really know what you're doing.
Sorry, if
Think
you
about it like
listen on
this.
Spotify, Apple Music.
If they say music is based, if music marketing and sales can be based on an 80-20 rule, so you basically just need, in that same sense, oh, okay, here's 80, here's 20% buying up 80% of your merchandise. In that instance, you don't need a lot of people. Out of 1,000 people, you just need that 20% marker to buy the vast majority, your super fans. So in that same instance, you coming in with $35,000, you still have to find those actual fans, not the followers.
Yeah,
Most
but
people
okay.
coming into social media are following followers who aren't actually spending money.
No, I disagree. So the reason why I disagree is because I think these social media influencers who are getting into the game already know that. They're just applying it to the same rules apply. They're just applying it to a different game. They know that 20% of their followers are their biggest fans, and 80% are just spectators. They're just applying to a different game. That's why I was saying in regard to that social media star, which is in her case. Oh, by the way, if you or your management is watching, it's all love. Like, I no disrespect at all. I just want to use you as an example. I got to be careful here,
That's real.
because I'm
That's
letting
real.
y'all into like some conversations. But if she knows that rule already and she has a $35,000 budget, all she because here's the thing. I believe that if you know how to leverage money, and I'm going kind of high level, but I'll bring it back. If you know how to leverage money, you can get way more shit done than anything. You know who to hire, you know
Mm-hmm.
what to hire for. So if you know that basics there, and you come to the music business, all you got to do is scope the floor and go scope the field and be like, oh, okay, cool. There's my running back, there's my tail end, that's my safety. Okay, if you're coming from soccer to football, you go, okay, cool. We're playing chess. It's up it going back and forth. It's more of like one person goes up the field, another person goes up the field. All you're doing is renaming the pieces. So that's why I'm saying, like, if you have $35 thousand
Yeah.
dollars and you
But that's
understand
tricky
that
though.
basics,
You have
eh,
people who know how to leverage money who still go broke, multi-millionaires who are in debt. You know what I'm saying? With regards to the fact that they understood how to leverage money to get where they are, but there's still some circumstance that led them down the path. Well, we're not going to speak any names in regards to those behaviors, but we all have heard the news stories, et cetera, et cetera. But even in that sense, the difference between social media and music, that is, how do you say, an issue for artists with regards to their level of success, is that those who join the social media community who are not artists traditionally understand that their ability to get the conversation going is to monetize. You know what I'm saying? They have to create content, and that content in itself either A, allows ad revenue, depending on the platform, or you're allowed to monetize the content in general. Most artists don't focus on monetizing their content, they focus on transitioning to the music itself.
but you're proving my point. A social media influencer will understand that. They know that. You're just applying it to a different game. It's the same concept. It's just a different field. That's it. Just a different sport. Just like how you have someone, excuse me, just how you can have football players go play basketball and basketball players go play football, and they can be great at both sports. The fundamentals are still there. So if I'm a social media star and taking everything what you said about the content, instead of a social media post, it's a record. All I'm doing is just leveraging the record to create a fan base to monetize. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
Right, but that's them knowing.
but that's
That
what.
goes back to the problem. Right, but that goes back to the main point of the conversation is the reason why artists need a budget and the situation of them having it and not being successful is because they do not know. They don't know how to leverage. They don't understand because they aren't in a position where they're taught these principles. And that's where it comes back to that initial point of that conversation of why do you need that budget? At this point, having the budget just allows them to go find out. But those same football stars who understand the fundamentals are those same people who are getting took by accountants. They understand their fundamentals of how to gain the money through their skill set. But at the same time, this person who actually manages their money is taking the money from this person who is allegedly making it. The same situation that we hear in the music industry with managers and artists, as they say, through the grapevines, allegedly.
Yeah, but even with that example, so all right, so let's use that example that we're talking about, right? Even with that example, you can still leverage some money to go find someone that knows something. But that's what I'm
But
saying.
you
Like
have to know, enough that they won't take advantage of it. And that's the trick that we're dealing with a lot of these sports and music stars. You have the money, you believe this person is the authority because everything about them says they are the authority. But because you don't know and they do, depending on that person's character, they take advantage of it.
okay,
And that's the other issue that we deal with.
okay,
You still have to know yourself, or know something at least.
okay. Even in that case, right? And I'm not trying to be contrarian, but I just want to stick to my point. Even in that case, for the artists that are watching, you can still hire someone who knows this information and can take you from point A to point Z, no matter the genre or whatever else. That's what I'm saying. I believe the person with the $35,000 budget coming in for the very first time ever has a much bigger advantage. Because even if they miss, let's say they hired the wrong manager, they hired the wrong agency, they put out the wrong music, even then, with that much money, just running Instagram ads and just the basic stuff, they're going to get way more exposure that they can leverage for the next time. You feel what I'm saying? So let's say 35K.
That's tricky.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, that's tricky because if you think about how many artists had that same situation signed to label deals, who had one album deals or had multiple albums, had the money, the finances leveraged during social media and before social media, and still fell off. You know what I'm saying? With regards to the music not selling properly or the brand not. That's it. Well, labels before it was social media. This is literally what they did, was quite literally throwing that paint at the wall, trying to verify who they needed to target, who your audience was when it came to development, trying to mold you into the success story. So all we're doing now with social media is the same thing labels used to do, but labels don't have to do it. Labels are looking for people who already understand it. So even the person with that $35,000, yes, if you're running Instagram ads, yeah, it'll be a while before you run out of money. But if you're hiring a marketing agency, not so much. Depending on if they're charging you $500 a month, and that's just for the base fee. And now they're also charging you for other facilities, faculty, things that are happening to build your brand. Hey, we got to build your website. Hey, we got to build your EPK. Hey, we got to build your email list. All these little things have potential price tags to it. And in that situation, that's going to lead a premise of that 35,000 being chunked out. Remember, that said, what, take $150,000 to break radio? You know what I'm saying? On a single, not an album. You know what I'm saying? So in that same sense, that 35,000 is just a drop in the bucket of all the varying things you're going to have to do when it comes to promotion of a record, let alone your brand over the course of a year. And the goal is for you, like you said, retention, for them to capture and be able to retarget that fan base going forward, provided they actually were a fan base. Because what most people will do is use things like Spotify playlists, because they'll try to get in with people who they can do the, how do you say, pay for spins scenario, because that's still a big thing going on with different situations. The pay, we don't want to say the P word, you know what I'm saying? But those behaviors still exist. So you'll try to align in through relationships where your music will look good because, it has a million hits because it's a part of this. But then we know the old fable tale, once you're not in that playlist, again, if those fans or quote unquote listeners aren't actually fans of your record, they were just fans of what played in the playlist. When that next record drops, you're more than likely going to see a dip. Now, when you see that dip, but you see who still comes back, now you're actually paying attention to who is actually fans of the content, and you got to retarget them to get it to move. But at that point, you got to actually say, do you have another $35,000 over the course of the 1 year you just spent that money on basically building your initial brand?
Okay.
And now you're going into year two.
So okay, Mr. Wavz, Mr. Project Manager. If that's the case, then if I'm a brand new artist and I come to you and have a $35,000 budget, what do you do?
First thing I'm going to ask you is say, okay, well, what do you know about your brand? What is it that you're trying to do? Because I'm not going to waste your time or your money if you don't know who you are, what you're supposed to be, or what story you're telling to these people. That's the first thing we're going to spend money on, is actually building who you are to the public, the superhero story that you're supposed to be selling. Because even if you run ads, the ads are pointless if it doesn't have a story, captivating, or some form of intriguing behavior that's going to create and stimulate a call to action to make them to want to do something. It all comes back to them seeing you, and you in their eyes being larger than life. Nothing else matters. There's plenty of actionable singers who are incredible, who don't become the famous people you think they should be. Some of them are talented behind the scenes and make great money, but not everybody is destined to be that quote unquote artist just because you have money. If you don't have a proper story that can sell and have that personality that's going to rock out with the public, you're going to have to understand, is this for you? And that's the first thing I ask any artist. Who is it that you want to be? And people say, oh, I don't want to be Jay-Z. I don't want to be Beyonce. I'm different. The first thing I say to them is no disrespect, but bullshit. They are just models. And when they say, what do you mean by model? I say they are just indicators of the level of success you can achieve utilizing various methods and various skill sets. Remove the person you see and put yourself there. Do you want this level of success? Even Adele said when that song Hello came out, she would never
Oh,
fandom. You know what I'm saying? So
you gotta
you
say
have to
that again.
ask yourself,
Your
who do you
connection
want
cut
to
out.
be? Oh, I was saying there's even articles about Adele when she dropped the song Hello. And she was like, yeah, I will never do another record like that again because the level of fandom that it brought was astronomical. And she's like, I don't want to be that person. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to position yourself and say, who do you want to be? What do you want your story to tell? After that, then we start spending the money.
So this is why I'm going for top podcaster of 2022. You saw how I just threw the alley oop to Wade to tell him describe some of the services we offer at Room 380. I'm telling you, episode 36, man, I'm on. Okay. All right, all right. Is there anything else I want to touch base on? I don't want to get into the whole R&B conversation, even though I think some of you guys would appreciate it, but I feel like it's a little too. I don't know. Do you have anything to say on the whole R&B thing?
I'm gonna leave R&B alone. R&B has been having some great years and some bad situations. People kill me with that whole R&B is toxic. I'm tired of toxic music. Man, R&B has been toxic since inception. It's just a different kind of toxic.
Man, listen.
More and more.
Look, man, I was listening to Michael Bolton. That motherfucker's toxic. Like, what are we talking about? Like enough. And then also the whole R&B is dead. It's like, how do y'all? Never mind. I'm not gonna get into it.
Or do we want to dodge that FN Mecca situation?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that's why y'all should listen to us. Yeah, I guess to wrap it up, I kind of want to dive into the whole women in the music business because I was talking to one of our songwriters, and I've spoken about it here before as far as just working with women songwriters. It's been a fantastic experience, but it's also been kind of crazy because I hear all these stories about some of the studio sessions that they've been in with men, and there's no way a grown man would act like that, and just yeah. But we'll save that for the next podcast episode. But to sort of wrap this up, the whole FN Mika thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. Wait, I didn't realize how PC our podcast is. Cause people went deep. Him Mika did an interview with TMZ talking about how racist the character was and how it's it doesn't really represent the culture well, and this is how white people really think about us, and this, that, and the third, and da da da. I was just like, oh, I didn't think of all that.
Listen. I'm gonna tell you. So I was reading other articles about that same situation. Apparently, as they were communicating, majority of the crew is ethnic, and the person who actually does the voice work, the rapping stuff like that, is black. So
I saw
that's
the
the
TikTok
crazy
video.
thing
Yeah,
because, right, when we talk about a matter of representation, we got to be careful because we're thinking, oh, excuse the phrasing. We're thinking it's Caucasian Americans who are portraying us in this capacity from the corporate circumstance, but at the same time, it's like you have people who are living through these situations who aren't rappers and they're just utilizing these models to tell their story. But that's the danger also because it's such a new foundational behavior utilizing AI as the model that people are like, wait a minute, you aren't going to be locked up for telling these things, but Meek Mills can and such and such. So it's like it's one of those defining how do you create the story, you know what I'm saying, without necessarily creating the backlash of someone perceiving you being able to say things that someone else can't say legally without there being repercussions.
listen,
But
this
it's
is
not going to go away.
no, but this is what I'm gonna say, right? So to wrap up this conversation, um, I believe what Hitmaker was saying was correct. I believe what everyone was talking about was correct. I also want to point out this is just my ego. We did tell you guys like in 2021 that this was coming because Warner Records did try first. I was just like, I know what's going on here. But anyway, not to turn into conspiracy Hans, but I be knowing. With that being said, yes, culturally it is misrepresentation. So I'm gonna look at it from both sides, right? And then Theo, I'm gonna let you wrap this up because you brought up some pretty good points here. So I'll bring it up from both sides. Please feel free to kill me in the comments. I don't care. But on the side of culture, me as an American black male, now I'm being called indigenous, Amor, Indian, whatever you want. My name is Hans. But anyway, yeah, it is misrepresentation. Very correct. But when I saw that these were black people that were behind this,
All of a sudden, it changed.
all of a sudden it changed because it's like so now it becomes a deeper question, right? And I'm glad we say this to the end of the episode. Is this how black people see themselves? But then that opens up a whole Pandora box and a whole crazy conversation that I'll let you guys discuss in the comments. But and was it pandering to a certain demographic? Because we know this wasn't for us. We know like no one is jamming F and Mika in the hood. We know this. So there's that part of it that begs a question. And the other side of it, as an investor myself, I can see someone coming to me with the idea, because again, these were black people coming to me with the idea, say, hey, we have an opportunity where we can monetize, where we can control an artist. And as we brought up in episode 34, 3, whenever we did it, hey, look, listen, you don't have to worry about the artist having a relationship. They're not going to argue with you about profit margin, any of that. They can do whatever, we can do whatever they want. I can see a VC going like, okay, cool, and then signing off the check, because that's the thing. That's the thing about being an investor. And whenever you guys want to get in that conversation, you can. I can give you my experience of being an investor. You're literally, I mean, you're not throwing paint at the wall, but you can only get so much data. And it's easy for someone with the right business model and the right business plan and the A/B testing and everything else to come to you and you go, okay, this sounds good. And then after the implementation, go, holy shit, this was oh my, eject immediately, right? So I see both sides. I still, and this is me, I still don't think this is it's too early for us to start worrying about this. I don't see UMG in other words, I don't see RCA and Adam Levine's label signing AI artists and all of a sudden, okay, we're gonna get you live artists out the way. I don't see this happening anytime soon. I think what you're looking at is the idea of them getting your 10 or 11-year-old nephew or sons and daughters and then conditioning them so by the time they're 25, they can go to Coachella then they're gonna test it for real. Where hey,
Hmm.
stage C is an F and Mika, and then take it from there. I don't think it's anything you need to worry about today, but it would be dope to see more of us in those meetings, at least, or somebody with some sort of sense going, that's stupid, put it away, we'll talk later. And that's it. That's my point. Go ahead, Theo. Go ahead and close it.
So, so you're right. You're right. Because I remember this had to have been about 2 years ago. I went to one of my wife's friends' children's birthday party,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember her telling me about a J-pop artist that was AI based, and how all her friends basically love this J-pop artist. You know what I'm saying? So the whole AI concept has been around for years
For
with regards to
years.
artistry. It's just breaking into the U.S. market, and this is the first real pseudo successful adoption from a hip hop standpoint, as in it was successful enough to get the look of a major label. The unfortunate backlash was the circumstance of the stories that were being told. But again, the trick behind it is, like you said, it's the cultural value, because we got so wrapped up in the ideology of, oh, wait a minute, this isn't us. This is basically white corporate America's viewership or viewpoint of what's happening in the hoods or in black culture. And this is how we need to represent to get people to subscribe or buy into,
Right.
only to find out, oh no, this is actually someone who's ethnic, black, etc., like ourselves, who may potentially be utilizing the stories that are going on in their neighborhoods, their world, etc., and basically perpetuating a cycle. Now, is it right? No. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's one of those fine lines. The only real reason at this moment, from what we saw, people giving backlash as it being a fine line, was the criminal element to the fact that FN Mecca or Mika, whatever how you pronounce the name, could not be held accountable, could
Right.
not technically stand trial, and legally you could not hold the people who created them accountable because they committed no crime. Whereas in the situation of think about it, if he's perpetuated, if he shows a picture of him being taken down
No,
by
they
police,
they
being
didn't they didn't
brutalized,
no, they didn't commit a crime, but it was an offense.
right? But that's the point. The argument in that instance is, oh, well, this is ridiculous because artist such and such who came up from the hood, who is telling his story, has to fight in some states versus others. The legality of, if he says this in a song and he's under investigation, could this be used against him? FN Mecca could say that, or Mika could say the exact same thing, and it never be a
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
That was the primary issue as of right now from a cultural standpoint. Well, one of the
Okay.
primary issues, we'll say. So in that same situation, if it becomes more of a cultural adoption of saying who is actually behind these AI from an ethnic standpoint, let's say another hip hop artist comes out, but they do booty music. It's not necessarily going to be an issue, regardless of who made it, because they're making something that is considered popular music without some form of, how do you say, legal structure or construct that's going to cause an issue, because they're just making something that's going to be popular in the clubs. So that's where that fine line is going to be, is how far they can press that line in black culture before it becomes taboo, because you're basically appropriating on things that people are doing to get out of a circumstance. But as long as you play it cool, the Will Smith, the L Cool J, the Flow Rider situation, you do the Mama Said Knock You Out music, you'll be all right. You do the elevator music,
Which
you'll be all right.
which to me would have made 100%. That would have made make more sense. That's going to appeal to a much wider audience. But again, it just depends on the
Well,
data they're
that's
working with.
tricky.
Because
But the honest truth is, when it comes to hip hop, the reason why you see more street artists, gangster music, and stuff like that is because those stories are incredibly popular. Because it's no different than when you see Hollywood looking at action films, James Bond movies. America as a whole culturally loves violence. We love the cultural circumstance. We love the misogyny. We love the sexual antics. We may condone behaviors when it comes to very specific circumstances that we say, okay, wait a minute, you pushed the envelope a little bit too far. But overall, when we just look at our culture as a whole, we love violence, sex, and money. And this is not just white America. This is America across the standing board. We all love these things for different reasons. For example, when they talk about hip hop culture and us wearing chains, the argument we always make is, well, we came from nothing, in the sense that a lot of us came from ghettos, hoods, or impoverished situations. So once we get money, yes, we get flashy because we want to show the world that we've actually made it somewhere. Just wearing these chains is an achievement status for us. You know what I'm saying? Where it's different for someone else in a completely different neighborhood, in a completely different zip code, who came from everything that we didn't have. That doesn't make sense as an achievement status for them naturally, but they love to see us do it. They love to see us wear it because it's them being able to live vicariously through. And on the same sense for us, if we had the choice of growing up in the hood or growing up in the suburb, don't nobody want to grow up in the hood. So us seeing these individuals grow up with Ferraris or grow up with Toyotas and the big white house with the picket fence, we're vicariously living through them. But they have their own circumstance points of violence, like a culpable behaviors, etc. Literally, it's grass is green on the other side concept. You know what I'm saying? And that cultural cycle just goes across America. Think about it. Every time you hear a record, the argument between females and males in hip hop is, well, why can he make a record talking about sucking my such and such? But if I make a record talking about licking my such and such, now he's the player, but I'm the whore. You know what I'm saying? Man, cash all that noise. I'm gonna do what I want anyways, and I'm gonna have these females rock. Like what's I can't even think of the artist's name who just had a record out that was basically talking about being a hoe. You know what I'm saying? Like basically telling girls to get out here and get on your hoe shit and glorifying it in such a way that it's like, man, just get on your whole party shit. We're not telling you to be a hoe the rest of your life. We just telling you in this moment right now, go out here and do your thing. Go out here and make that man pay for your dinners, pay for your X, Y, and Z. That's why you have circumstances like F in Mecca, because they're utilizing the circumstances that they see around them that's selling. It's just like what they'll tell artists, yo, if you see a political circumstance going on, you can make a song about that political circumstance and you can instantly capture an audience if your song resonates with the circumstance. Like Jason Derulo in the World Cup. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, hey, big football is a big football championship, world championship, drop this record. Boom, number one hit record across the world. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's
No,
done all the time.
no, I feel you. It's a interesting situation, and what I think what everyone should take from it is, yeah, like I said, it's one definitely start looking into these stories a bit more because everyone was just like these white, and just like, oh wait, it's like, yeah, so it is what it
Cancel
is.
culture from the first opinion.
But anyway, shout out to everyone. This is our first live stream we did on Facebook. Um, Shout out to me. I killed it. I'm very. I came with it. I didn't even. I didn't have any red wine. I didn't have any tequila. Kill that shit.
No tequila with the line.
No tequila with the lime, man. Kill that shit. I must have been feeling it. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. So again, thank you for checking out. This is episode 36 of the Capitalism in Art podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe. If you're here on Facebook, please feel free to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts and let us know what type of content you guys like to see from us. One love and
And tell
peace.
them run up the so they say shout out the mark, run up the numbers, no spam bots.